Freeform Radio is back on the air on the Freeform Network. You can follow us on Facebook at Freeform Network, on Twitter at FFR Podcast. And remember to send your questions and suggestions to ffnquestions@gmail.com. A little hint, we got a special episode going to be coming up soon about all of the questions and suggestions we've gotten from our millions and millions of fans. So keep them coming, people. We're going to have a special episode soon. And again, this is Freeform Radio. I'm one of your many hosts, Andy. I'm thawing from this fucking polar vortex we just had. It kind of kicked their ass. And we have...
My name is Daniel, and I'm also thawing. Probably not as much as you, Andy. I think you got a little more snow than we did down here, didn't we? Because you're like in another state already.
I'm like basically in southern Wisconsin,
right.
And I'm closer up north, so that we were right deep in the middle of that vortex. But I was hoping to see stupid videos of you, Danny, throwing hot water on yourself or walking up with a cup of coffee and walking in and showing, look how cold it is, everyone. Did you do any? I didn't see no post of you doing those type of videos.
No. I do have a young kid that is influenced by YouTubers, and he did try to convince me to go out there, but I told him it's too damn cold to be throwing water in the air.
So we got nothing better to do to talk about the fucking weather, a typical January in Chicago. But with this polar vortex, when it was 25 to 26 below zero, Danny, you decided to get into, you wanted to recapture some Christmas spirit. And you mentioned to me during this polar vortex, you watched a Christmas movie. Why? I don't know. I don't know if the cold kind of froze your brain and you decided to pop in some Christmas movies. Which one did you check out?
Yeah, I checked out this the Netflix one with who is it? Russell Crowe? No, not Russell Crowe. What the hell's his name?
Russell Crowe.
What the hell's his name? Russell something.
Brand? The English guy?
No, what's the actor that's in it?
What's the name of the movie?
The name of the movie is Christmas Chronicles. It's on Netflix. Kurt Russell.
Oh.
Yeah, Kurt Russell.
Elvis.
Yeah. He played Elvis in, what was that? Jesus Christ.
In the 70s movie.
1,000 Islands or
3,000 Miles to Graceland.
And yeah, something like that.
Elvis in
like a CBS movies, yeah. Well, he made a Christmas Chronicles for Netflix, and he portrays Santa. And I gotta say, he plays a very good Santa, man. I really dug the movie. I thought it was very well put together. A lot of CG stuff, but at the same time, a lot of practical acting. It wasn't too much over the top CG, and it was pretty good, man. Had a couple of kid actors in it, which they did a good job as well. And at the very end, there's a character that does a little cameo that was surprising. I didn't expect that, but Mrs. Claus is definitely a unique character. But yeah, it was a good movie. In what
way? What, she's like a sexy Mrs. Claus, or?
Well, I guess maybe the newer generation wouldn't get the wink and the nod. As far as the character who portrayed Mrs. Claus, but me being a guy that's seen a lot of 80s movies, I right away said, oh, yeah, that makes sense, and it was kind of funny.
So it is Star-Lord's dad that's Santa Claus, so.
Right. But, yeah, man, I've always liked him as an actor. I thought he was a real good actor in a bunch of different movies. And he does a good job here with Santa. I don't know why we decided to watch it. I think it was just, it's on. It's something that we've been meaning to watch, so we finally got around to watching it, and it was pretty cool, man. It was a pretty cool movie.
So what's the premise of the movie? Could you tell us that?
I think it's it's so much of a blur now. Just because it's one of those goofy movies, it's not taking itself too serious. It's a kid's, goofy movie, kind of like Beethoven's Christmas. It's one of those Christmas movies that it's kind of meant to be just one of those not super serious in the plot, and it's just goofy fun. But Santa's doing his thing. There's this little girl that's trying to capture Santa on a camera, like a camcorder. The mom is super busy, so she's never around. The dad ended up passing away, so it's a single mom trying to do the struggle of being a strong woman in this new world, and working and all that good stuff. And the little girl ends up putting like some type of rig, so when Santa comes down the chimney, the video recorder would start, set off some type of alarm so that they would know about it and be able to capture him. So granted to say, she does get him on tape. They ended up going outside and actually sneaking onto the sled. Due to the kid's little fiasco, Santa loses control, ends up losing the presents, losing his magical hat, and then that's where the funny ensues. It takes place, the majority, in Chicago, so there's a lot of Chicago references in the movie, and even towards the end, Santa does like a Blues Brothers song, and he starts singing and dancing and start getting other people involved. And it was
Minnie the Moocher.
No, what is that one?
It's from the Blues Brothers. Like
okay.
The guy's doing that show, and he's like, "Hit it, boys," and he starts doing that old like 2030s jazz song.
Right. I imagine that's what this one would sound like, because it's definitely out of Blues Brothers kind of theme to it. A lot of piano, saxophone, stuff like that. And it's really cool, man. It's cool seeing a bunch of places in Chicago that you notice from the skyline in the background. So it definitely got a nostalgia pop for me with that. I was hoping to see like Gin and Jude's pop up in the background, or maybe like a Pequot's pop in, but nothing as far as that goes.
So is this a movie you would put in your Christmas must-see rotation when the Christmas rolls around?
I think so, man. I think this is one of those that it stacks up there. It's fun, funny. I like the actors. And Junior, most of all, enjoyed it. So I'm sure it'll sneak into our rotation and become one of those staples right next to a Home Alone and A Christmas Story.
Wow, man. I know Star-Lord's dad had that much pull for Christmas movies. No, Kurt Russell's been acting since like he's a kid, right? He's been acting since like the 60s.
Oh, I didn't know he was since he was younger. I kind of just remember him from like Escape of New York, Cutthroat Island. I forget what other ones he's in. And then, like you said, the Elvis movies.
Well, he was a kid actor, and he was doing Disney movies like in the 60s.
Oh, wow.
And then he grew up, and then he did the from what I can recall off of what I remember, he did that Elvis movie, and that was like one of his first as an adult starring role, that TV movie, and then from there he just took off. That's why in 3,000 Miles to Graceland, he replays Elvis in a movie. They made a big deal about it because he made the Elvis TV movie, and he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, that's another really good movie where they're trying to rob a bank or rob a casino.
Right.
Yeah, that's another really good one. But yeah, man, he really does well here. If you're a fan of Christmas movies, I know it's kind of past the season now, but it's still on Netflix. So anybody with Netflix, it's a good movie to definitely watch.
What? So you guys just popped it in for the hell of it?
Yeah, I can't even remember if we watched it during the bad weather, but we just recently watched it, and it was definitely worth the watch. Every now and then if we can settle Junior down from jumping up and down and kind of running around the house and to watch a movie, it's always a good thing. And then if we can get him to sit still for the 2 hours and actually watch it, that's another plus. And this was one of those movies that actually kept him there engaged, and he didn't go off and start playing soccer or start trying to wrestle with Bagel, our dog. So yeah, it was a good movie.
So was there elves in the movie?
Yeah, that is the one part that was kind of cheesy because it's not typical elves. It's more CG'd, so it's a lot of elves doing their shenanigans and stuff, and kind of bouncing around like maniacs. So that was probably the one thing I didn't like. I would have maybe liked a shorter person, playing some elves, but no, these were like CG, literal like gremlin type characters. But yeah, man, other than watching the movie, I've been kind of busy with my new class that I'm starting to take at Triton, the community college that I go to. It's called Analytics Statics. So for this class, it's mostly trigonometry and the study of weights and loads as they pertain to like bridges and structures. So, to be honest, I was kind of scared when I first signed up for it, just because I haven't done trigonometry since high school, man. It's been a really, really long time. I mean, what is that now? 20 plus years, Andy? How long has it been?
It's been 30 years, I think.
Is it already? Jesus.
Yeah, I think so. So if you're doing trig, then if it's about weights and stuff, then we'll build a bed that doesn't break, man. They can handle my force and shit.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't gotten that far as far as to apply it right now. I've barely had 2 classes under my belt. And the first class was mostly just review, like, hey, these guys remember college algebra equations and how to solve them. So we kind of went over a review on that, and then reviewed over trigonometry and using tangent, cosine, and sine. And then going over vectors and how to add vectors and solve for vectors. So there's a bunch of old trig stuff and some algebra stuff as well, a little bit of geometry. And it was just, I was just like, I kind of vaguely remember this stuff from high school. But since you don't put it into an application now that you're older, it kind of fades from your memory a little bit. And it was definitely tough to pull it back into my brain and kind of recall all the steps and everything that you need to do.
So let me ask you this: when you take to the class and you guys are reviewing this stuff, do you feel lost? Are you struggling to remember? Is the other kids, do they know what the hell's going on?
I've always been really confident with math. I've always thought it's one of my best suits because, as probably everybody can tell from the podcast, I'm not really an eloquent speaker. So I always thought math was like my strong suit. So I was kind of confident going into the class. I'm like, it'll probably be a little bit of a stutter step, but I should be able to hit my stride without too much problem. But I got to be honest, man, the class is like 4 hours long, like 4.5 hours. Like an hour into it, dude, I'm just contemplating, man, how am I going to drop this class and try to get as much as my money back as I can, because I already had paid for the class. That's how much I was just like, Jesus, this is over my head. And not so much that I didn't know it, but that I didn't know it quick enough, because there's other younger kids in this class that are coming straight out of high school, or maybe they took it in college already. And, it's all fresh, while I'm trying to figure it out and barely putting my pencil to the paper, figuring the equation out. These kids are already blurting out answers and, hey, yeah, you got to do this and then move this over. And then if you do that to this side, you got to remember to do it to that side. And if we're going to divide on that end, we got to divide on this end. And it was all stuff that, it was starting to click back into my brain, but it was definitely taking a minute. So I got to admit, after the first class, I was kind of, one step out the door and just saying, man, how do I bail this class and maybe take a refresher course before I hit this, math intensive class again.
I thought you were going to say the kids were on Snapchat or some shit like that.
There was a couple kids that I've had in other courses, in particular, this one that he kind of trips me out. Every class that I have him in, he always finds a buddy to talk to. And while he's talking to his buddy, he always makes a comment, something to the fact of, yeah, I'm kind of striving for a C in this class. And if I get a C, I think I'll be okay. And I'm just like, dude, is that how you live your life? Because this is the only class, like I mentioned, I've had him in a few, and he always makes a similar comment. I'm like, are you living your life of aiming for mediocrity, where you're just trying to get by and just trying to get the bare minimum to pass? Don't kids nowadays strive for the best? Strive for an A.
Socialist.
I to me, dude, I know we talk a lot about us getting old and all that stuff, and I don't know if this is an old thing or if this is, I don't know, man. It's maybe just different upbringing. But I always told Junior, I'm like, you might not always get an A, but you need to strive for it, and you need to work hard for it and do your best that you can. To me, I just don't get it, man.
How dare you push your son like that, Danny? Come on. It's okay to not get an A. That's what was awesome.
It is kind of okay not to get an A, but I do push them to do the best. I'm like, as long as you put the effort in and you try your very best and it's an honest effort to do your best, I'm fine with that. There was one year Junior was struggling really bad in an English class, it was a reading. He was having issues with comprehension. He would read a story. It would ask you, hey, what was the thing that Bo Peep was trying to, take care of? And he wouldn't know that it was the lambs or whatever the whole story is. It's like by the time he got to the end of the story, he would forget a lot of the start.
Right.
So we really pushed him to read more. It's like, we got to read more. We got to get better at it. So we started devoting reading time where everybody would sit down and just read a book. And at the end of it, we would just start asking questions to each other about it to try to explain the story. So hopefully he would start retaining some of what he just read. And needless to say, I don't know if the teacher just like, hey, the hell with it, let me give him an A or a B so I can get rid of this kid. But his grades did start improving and they started getting better. And it was just something that we just kept telling him. It's just like, dude, you just got to push yourself, do the best you can, and things will, for the majority, work out in your benefit. Now, if you try your very best and you end up getting a C, that's fine too. But you just got to push yourself and really strive to be the best you can.
Yeah, so, today with schooling, I feel like, with my wife being a teacher, some of the stories I hear, I'm just like, parents are afraid to push their kids, and they rather push more on the teachers.
Which, the teachers, right?
So you got to have teachers that care, but also a lot of it, it's like 50-50. You got to have good teachers, and you got to have students who respond to whatever they're teaching. So, but I feel like lately they push more the parents than the students or their kids.
Right. Yeah. No, I do think that's very true because the parent-teacher conferences that we've gone to, I always tell them, I'm like, look, tell me if there's a problem. I need you to tell me while the problem is existing and not when it's progress report time and 3 months have passed by and he's lost now. Let me know when the problem is coming up so we can take care of it.
Right.
And I have had a few teachers email me on occasion, like, hey, Junior was kind of distracted today and he didn't really comprehend this part of the lecture. Please have a talk to him. And we've talked to him. And those same teachers, they tell us, it's like, it's refreshing to see that a parent takes responsibility with their child instead of saying, well, if my son is struggling, why aren't you doing your job and teaching him right?
You mean you'll face teachers?
So I think the teachers, at least the majority do appreciate that we do try to push Junior to do the best he can and to be responsible for his grades. And does that always take place? I'm not sure, but we try to push that into him.
Like I always say, there's no such thing as a bad student, just bad teachers.
Damn right, man. But to get back to a little bit to this class that I'm taking, I talked to my wife. I kind of broke down and started crying, and I'm like, I'm lost, help me. And
she responded with the belt.
Yeah, she took the belt out, started whipping me. He's like,
you better learn.
He's like, be a man and learn. But no, I did come to my wife and I told her, look, I got to be honest. It's not that I'm trying to just take easy courses and that's all I want. I know there's going to be courses that are tough and that's going to take a lot of work. He's like, this is definitely one of those hard courses. So I told her, I'm like, maybe I should take a refresher course before I do this, take a trig class, take a college algebra class, or do something to kind of get my mind back up to speed to some of these newer kids that are in school. And my wife's like, look, you can do it. You say you remember a lot of it. So it's just the speed that's the problem. It's that, you just need to get the recollection to go a lot faster. She's just like, try your best, give it a couple more days or a couple more classes. And then if things are still, in a downward spiral, then, maybe think about getting a withdrawal from the class so that it doesn't affect your GPA. So I thought about it and she was right. I'm like, all right, let me do a little more studying. I started watching good old YouTube. It just doesn't teach you how to, bounce cups and flip them around and do goofy dances. It actually teaches you some other good stuff too. So I started
go down through like a rabbit hole. Like, I'm going to watch these videos, and then you watch like a conspiracy video or something.
Actually, yeah, when I was looking for triangles, I started getting like all this alien stuff.
Or flat earth's crap.
Right. So I don't know how much conspiracy stuff is linked to trigonometry, but like I mentioned, I started watching YouTube, started watching college algebra for beginners or dummies, and then same thing for trigonometry. And I gotta say, man, after I watched those videos, which were kind of intense, man, it was like half an hour of videos, but after watching it, I did feel better, man. I felt like, yeah, I remember that. And then they would show the next thing, and then I'd be like, yeah, I remember that too. And they had practice examples and I was doing them. And after watching these videos and going to my second class that we had, I felt a lot better, man. I felt like I was maybe not as fast as some of these kids, which was pissing me off, but I was getting there. So hopefully by the end of the semester, I'll be handling my own and being able to hang in there. But for now, I'm going to still keep pushing, man, and still keep trying the best I can.
Yeah, I always find it interesting when you talk about how you sign up for the classes, you go back and you describe these kids, and then, like you talk about their night classes, and I was always intrigued by people who take night class, especially younger people. Was that the only class? They were so lazy to get up in the morning, or their class, the one they wanted, got filled up, so they took night classes. And because I feel like night classes are reserved for like older people who have jobs,
Right. I kind of think the same, and I've had a few teachers say that. Is like, I like teaching night courses because it's people who are dedicated to come to course. It's not just the people mailing it in during the day because their daddy's paying their tuition. It's the people that have day jobs, work, and are trying to fit it into their schedule. So, yeah, man, going to keep pushing, and we'll see how this course keeps going. And hopefully I'll have some good progress report when the class is over.
Nice.
But speaking of effort, man, what's this thing that I heard you were telling me about, this article earlier about the Disney-Fox merger? Did all those guys start mailing it in, or are they still putting in the effort to wrap this merger up?
So one of my hobbies is reading about entertainment, corporate structures, and always been intrigued. Like, yes, we all like, I have an idea. I read stuff on how movies are made, but also the way I like reading and knowing how people go pitch the movies, how a studio basically works, like Fox, Warner Brothers, Universal, Paramount, And to me, that stuff always intrigued me, like the amount or how the structure works to greenlit a movie. So, Disney's last like decade, they just been buying everything up. They bought Lucasfilm, they bought Marvel, and the reason acquisition was they bought out Fox.
And Fox is a pretty big company on its own.
Yeah, dude, Fox is like a huge corporation. 21st Century Fox, they bought the movie division and some of the networks. So they bought like the Fox Sports ones. They bought the Fox Studio and whatever holdings they have. Like Disney now, when Hulu started, it was between all these media companies like Disney, Fox, Paramount or Viacom, Universal. They are slowly, Disney now they're the majority stockholder for Hulu now, and they're starting their own streaming service. So that's one of the reasons they've been buying all these media companies. They're building up their library to start their own streaming service. But
right, for content.
They need content. All these media companies crave is content, because Netflix is like, they learned their lesson. They paid for content. Now they're making their own. But going back to the acquisition or merger, I was reading about how when they first announced, a lot of executives were like, "Ah, shit! Like we're gonna have one." There used to be 6 studios. Now there's gonna be 5, and so there's going to be less jobs, and a lot of the executives were nervous. A lot of the people who work for the studio were nervous. And I was reading about how it was an article in the Hollywood Reporter that a lot of the executives basically, once this happened, they called it in. So a lot of them stopped showing up for work. This is happening before Christmas. I was reading a lot of executives haven't been seen in the parking lot or showed up to work for like months. Some of them showed up during Christmas, handed out a couple gifts. They're like, it was great working with you guys. Some of them left. And so the everyday employee, people who work in like marketing and editing and the gift shops and HR or, promotions, they're like, well, what the hell is going to happen to us? They're saying once the merger is almost complete, they're saying that they could lay off about 5 to 10,000 people because there's not enough jobs to go around. Big of them, a big chunk of that they believe is going to be executives and the people who do the editing and the marketing. Like Disney's not going to have 2 departments doing this. They're going to streamline everything. And so, it kind of sucks. Nobody's really talking about it. Everybody's like, oh yeah, we're finally going to see mutants with the Marvel movies, and Disney now owns Avatar, they own The Simpsons and all this stuff. But in the background, all those people who operate the websites, who do this and marketing, and like a lot of those people are going to lose their job because Disney already has people they hired who they personally vetted, that they're going to keep them. They're going to have 2 people doing the one job for a company that's becoming one.
Right. They got their own homegrown employees. So now that they're picking up another company, do you keep these new employees, or do you just keep your staff to take care of everything else? That's the tricky part about any of these mergers. It's the battle where you're kind of re-interviewing for a job that you already have, and they're probably just going to keep the best of the best.
So yeah, they have like Fox Searchlight Pictures, who made Napoleon Dynamite, Juno. Like this has been like a kind of a diamond for the Fox people. That basically Disney. I read that Disney is gonna let them do their own little thing, but they don't think they're gonna call it Fox Searchlight. And then a lot of they had a couple executives bolt. They left for Netflix. FX, they own that. They lost some people from that network. So it's to me, this stuff always intrigued me. And it's going to be interesting to see what Disney does. I mean, the layoff numbers, that's one of the things that caught my eye, how many people they're going to lay off. And it's shocking because, the other one, I don't know how much you know about Paramount and Viacom, Danny, with the Star Trek people who own it. It's like a complicated corporate mess, because Paramount is one company now and Viacom is a separate company. They used to be one, but they split them up, and they're having issues in-house with Star Trek, like with the movies. Like, it's very, very complicated and convoluted mess. I don't know how much you know of it. Is just the only reason I know about it is because Star Trek and how Viacom got the rights from Paramount to make the movies, but the TV shows is by Paramount, not Viacom. It's like, I'm like, why can't this just all just be the same shit? Apparently, it's it's the same property, but it's two different timelines. And one has control of the other one. And I'm just like, it's fucking Star Trek.
Yeah, there's got to be problems where, they've start and stopped that Star Trek movie, the new one, the J. Abrams universe Star Trek, on and off because of money issues and contracts with actors and different other issues. So, it's got to be kind of a hot mess over there.
Yeah, the biggest issue with Paramount is they're having cash flow problems. What I read, they can't get investors to put money into making these movies. One of Paramount's biggest investors was China, some Chinese company, and they made 2 movies that completely bombed. And they're like, we're not going to give you more money to make shitty movies. And they kind of ran into cash flow problems. But, like, again, who are you going to think? Oh, Paramount, they should have gobs of money. But they don't. They're having just cash flow problems.
Right. I myself was looking forward to that Star Trek movie. And then there was whispers that after that there was going to be a Tarantino maybe Star Trek movie.
Yeah, that was just, they were wishing, they just wanted to get buzz for it, I listened to this podcast, and one of the reasons they said that, they just want people to start talking about it.
Right.
They're going to we're bringing back Thor. You remember Thor? He was in our movie first, and they got some buzz, then it kind of died down, and then they're like, we're going to have Tarantino directed now. And they're just like, just to get some people to talk about it, because there was no excitement for it.
Right. Yeah. To me, I really like those movies that Paramount was putting out with the new universe. So it's kind of disappointing to hear that it's gone or in hiatus, or it's gone forever.
It's the Kelvin timeline, but going back to Disney, this sucks, man. Like Fox, I liked Fox. Fox has a long history of making like great fucking movies. I mean, they've had their struggles, but they've made Planet of the Apes, the new ones, the older ones, and they have been, Planet of the Apes, French Connection, Avatar. They helped. The list goes on and on, man. And what happening to that studio, like that lot, is completely, it's sad, man, because they have a rich tradition of making great fucking movies, and now it's Disney just swallowed them up, and a lot of these studios, making the movie business is so fucking hard now. That's why Comcast bought a big chunk of Universal. Basically, is to get the catalog, and they need to do these deals to survive, because Sony owns like Columbia and TriStar, and they even, I mean, all of them are struggling. They're so they go into the well to make some of these movies. That's why you don't have no original ideas. It's all franchises and remakes because they need money.
Right, because usually like a sequel gets more hype up than something that's unknown that you got to try to sell people on some new IP. It's easier to sell people on the new Toy Story 4 than to make a new movie from Jump Street without any kind of backstory. It's a lot easier to tack on that sequel.
Right. So like one of the movies, like talking perfect example, like the movie The Front Runner with Hugh Jackman, I watched recently. In this movie, it's a biopic movie about Gary Hart, who ran for president, and he got derailed because he had an affair with a woman. And this is like in the late 80s. And he was in the lead in the polls. They were predicting him to be the next president, and an affair toppled all this. Again, there's no CGI in this movie. It's all right. The movie, I would not say it's great, but it is a movie. It was well acted. Hugh Jackman, Wolverine did pretty good. There's a lot of people you recognize in the movie. And I don't know how much you know about Gary Hart and his presidential run and he got derailed. Do you know anything about that, Danny, in the 80s?
To be honest, I don't know who Gary Hart is. Is that the comedian actor that was in The Simpsons? What was that guy's name?
I thought you were going to say Kevin Hart.
Well, I do know who Kevin Hart is. But who was that actor, the one that used to play that straight face? Like, yeah, I'm Dick.
Troy McClure?
Troy McClure, that guy. Who's that actor?
That's Phil Hartman.
Phil Hartman. There you go. That's what I was thinking about.
He had a tragic end, but...
Right.
It goes to the guy. He lost the election in 84 to Mondale. Reagan destroyed him. And then he finished his second term, and he's going to run against Bush. And a lot of people like what he was saying. And when the polls, he announced he was rerunning for president, he took like a lead, like a big lead, and he was the Democrat to beat. And the only issue that he had, he was a womanizer, and everybody kind of knew about it. Yeah. And people asked him about his marriage, and he kind of lost his shit. He's like, it's my private life. When a reporter from the Post asked him, what about your marriage? You said that you don't have a traditional marriage. What does that mean? And the guy lost his shit in this interview. And it goes, if you don't think I'm faithful or something, he said, follow me. So he like challenged them, and he got caught up in Miami with this girl. They took pictures of it. And then he like snuck around and tried to hide in an alley, and the reporter from the Miami Herald, I believe, is chasing him, and they're snapping pictures of him in the alley. And he's like, how dare you do this to me? And they're like, you're done, dude. And he's like, no, I don't got to answer questions. And the movie delves into how he responds, and he kind of came back. But then at the end, they ask him again, like, oh, you're married. And he goes, are you a moral person if you're an adulterer? And he didn't answer it. And like, yeah, you're done, dude. And he lost he dropped out of the race. But it's a good movie for I like those movies like The Front Runner. And that's like a small budget movie. I don't even think it made it to the theater. It might have. I heard about it. But I recommend it if I like political movies or movies about political people. That shit really intrigues me.
Yeah, it did make it to the just reading up a little bit on it while you were talking, because like I said, I didn't know who this movie was about. And to be honest, even seeing pictures of Gary Hart, it doesn't ring a bell to me. So either I wasn't in tune with politics back then. But it did gross from the box office, $2.4 million. I don't really know how much it cost to make this movie.
Each movie like that cost them probably like $30 to $40 million to make.
Wow. But Yeah, I kind of dig movies like this too. You know, the serious political movies. I kind of dig them, especially if they got a good story. I don't know if they embellish the story a little bit more to make it more dramatic, but maybe it's a movie that I'll have to keep an eye out for.
Well, keep it. It's on one of the web streaming websites I use. I don't. It didn't last too long in the theater. But the other one kind of like that is, which I highly recommend real quick, Chappaquiddick with Kennedy, Ted Kennedy and allowing that girl allegedly trapped in the car to die. Have you seen that one? Because who Ted Kennedy, the Kennedys, right? The Ted Kennedy.
Right, where he crashes his car into like a lake or something.
Yeah, and that little bridge. I think that one's on Netflix. You should check it out, Danny.
What was that again? What's the name
Chappaquiddick. He's partying with girls in some fucking lake house, and they don't say that he was having an affair with her, but I mean, when you girls and booze in a lake house, what do you think else is gonna happen? And the cover up of how the Don tried to help out the Kennedys and how he tries to basically cover it up, like he fucking lied, and and it goes from there. But I knew the only reason I knew about Chappaquiddick because Mancow, he talked about, he used to have this joke or this like gag thing he used to play about when the Kennedys would come up. He'd be like, the Kennedys own where I worked, the merchandise mart at the time. This is like in the 2000s, and he would play this girl drowning, and you would hear gargling. Gargling like Teddy no, and like you hear gargling, right. And then he's like, Ted Kennedy let her die, and I'm just like, what the hell is this? And then there was a documentary about it on I think the History Channel or something, and I watched it, and I'm like, holy shit, like this is fucked up. And that's the only reason I knew about Chappaquiddick. I didn't know, I thought he was just a Kennedy and he was a senator. This guy literally let a woman die,
Right. Yeah, I do remember that Mancow skit, for you guys that maybe are not familiar with Mancow. He's a talk show DJ. Some people say shock jock, but he's here in the Midwest, Chicagoland area. Yeah. I recently started listening to him again. Now that he's back on the radio, he's on 890 AM now.
WLS.
WLS. So I've been tuning into his show again. But I do remember that skit. It'd be a car, racing out of control, and then you just hear that girl be like, Teddy, no, and then she'll start drowning or gurgling.
I'd be like, what the hell is this? And then he talked about it, and then I was flipping, I think it was something on the Kennedy assassination, and for whatever reason, they threw in that Chappaquiddick documentary. It was like 45 minutes, like an hour long, and I watched it, and I'm just like, oh, and now I understand why he's playing that, because that's always been the big debate about it,
Right. Yeah, I didn't really research too much into it, but you say it's on Netflix?
Yeah, it's called Chappaquiddick. It's well written. That one's, I think, is better than the Front Runner, but there was a lot of controversy with Kennedy if he let that girl die or whatever. But speaking of controversy, it's Super Bowl. We just watched the Super Bowl this past weekend, and the playoff games leading up to it. The Saints feel they got kind of screwed, and there was big controversy around that. And that's going to be our article of the week. So Yahoo Sports, I don't know how many of you out there, I'm pretty sure we have a lot of sports fans out there. The Saints game ended in controversy with a flag not being thrown for this wide receiver getting pushed. And so the Saints season ticket holders want to sue the NFL to have the end of the Saints-Rams game replayed. This is on Yahoo Sports, and the gist of it is so there was no penalty. They should They want to replay the fucking game, which I thought was stupid. Like, y'all just like a bunch of bitches to be polite. It is what it is. There's a lot of teams that got screwed by penalties or no penalties. It's just part of the game. I don't know how you feel about it, Dan, or your thoughts on that whole like let's sue and replay the game thing.
Well, I guess let's boil it down to the penalty or the supposed penalty. I think it was everything, man. It was leading with the helmet. It was pass interference. It was the whole shebang. It's like there was a multitude of penalties that could have been called, all that were non-reviewable or nothing that the coach could throw a red flag and kind of get a penalty called on it. So did the Saints get screwed? Yeah, man. Yeah, they definitely got screwed. But like you mentioned, how many other teams don't get screwed with a bad call or a bad penalty?
It happens in all sports, all leagues. It's just part of the game that you got to live with. Real quick, the suit people who are the Saint fans that are suing the league say that the Saints fans has suffered incredible damages from the missed call, including mental anguish, emotional trauma, loss of enjoyment of life, and more, and including loss of faith in the NFL. So, there you have it. They're blaming that whole no call just fucked up their life.
Right. I would be pissed off as well, but there's really not much you can do about it.
I mean, to the point where you're talking about suing someone is suing the league, and Goodell did came out and say there's just this can't happen. It's going to cost us a shitload of money, but I think they don't want to do it because they're going to set a precedence of if we do this, it's going to happen all the time.
Right. I mean, this is a big game. It's a playoff game, so it's more in the limelight, more than maybe like a regular season blunder by the referees. But it happens all the time, man. Is it good? No, man. I wish there was always the best calls, always on time. But these refs, they're human. I don't know what they were looking at when that play happened. You can clearly see there's a couple of refs right by the area, so what they were looking at or what they didn't see, I have no idea. But that's the way the cookie crumbles, man. Sometimes you get the call. Sometimes you get calls that are not even there, and you're like, that wasn't really pass interference, but whatever. I guess it's a pass interference to the ref. So that's just the way sometimes it is. And unfortunately, until they change the rules, if they ever change the rules to be able to challenge something like that, that's just the way it's going to be. And sometimes referees, they're the ones that make the deciding factor as to who wins and who loses.
The only thing, me being a conspiracy nut, I would hire these fans instead of suing the NFL. I would sue, or I would look into the ref who didn't make the call, or those refs.
Collusion?
Not collusion, but if they had money on that game, what was the line? The spread. If that, if they would have scored, how much money would Vegas or people win? That's the only thing I can think of. If there's some whiff of some shit like that, then you got yourself a case. That means that the game's fixed. Come on, people. It's not the first time refs haven't shaved or slowed down a game. It's the NBA went through this like a decade ago where a ref admitted he was shaving points because there was gamblers in Vegas, on had money on the game on over under and how many points he was trying to manipulate the score by calling bullshit fouls, putting quick fouls on certain players so they wouldn't score as much. So I mean, it does happen. There is a record of it. It was so bad that the FBI was involved, and the NBA just kind of brushed it under the table. Don't worry, we took care of it. Don't look, everything's cool up, and everything's legit.
Right. That thought did cross my head when it happened. I'm like, there's a referee that was told A, or he has money on the team, or he just hates the Saints, whatever the case may be. I'd hate to think bad on people and think that they would be malicious in that way, but it does happen. So it is out there. There are people that have alternative motives. This to me was a plain cut a foul, and it wasn't something that you could kind of like, well, I could kind of see that the defender pushed him, but it wasn't really towards the ground, or whatever the arguments could be against it. There's really nothing that I could see there. And I do give a lot of benefit to the refs. Sometimes they call a foul and they have to stick to it. It's not like they could, back up from it. So they do get a lot of flack and a lot of shit sometimes. So I do feel bad for them, but this is a call that was terribly missed.
Absolutely. It's, again, man, to me, this lawsuit is completely stupid. And I can't believe someone actually introduced it. It's like if I was a judge, I'd just throw this fucking thing out.
Well, they probably are, but I do think it's a good thing to put it out there, because you do want to create the buzz about it to make sure that the refs are held accountable. So I do kind of like that, even though the lawsuit would probably get tossed out and it's not even going to go anywhere. I think it's important to check these refs and make sure that they're held accountable, and that know that fans are looking, the league's looking, and that everybody notices things like this. But Andy, what's your quick thoughts as to the Super Bowl, man? Did you enjoy the game itself, the halftime, all the pregame, after game stuff? What's your quick thoughts on that?
The commercial sucked. The game was old school football, which was all right. I think the best whole thing about the Super Bowl was
Maroon 5, right? Hell yeah.
Halftime heat on the WWE Network. Watch some really good wrestling, some old school shit, but that's about it. All the commercials sucked.
You don't want to hear "Move Like Jagger" from Maroon 5, or what's some of the others? No?
I don't know. I was just like, I don't know who the hell these people are. Like, I was just like, I'm gonna watch wrestling.
Old timer, Andy.
And I was promised SpongeBob, and he came out for like 10 seconds and he didn't even sing. And then I saw the guy from Outkast coming out in his chinchilla jacket, and I don't even know what song he sang or rapped about. So, like I said, it was all just it was bad. It was bad halftime show.
A lot of people crapped on the Super Bowl in general. Not so much about the commercials. I didn't really hear too many bad things about that. But a lot of people hated the game and hated the halftime. I got to be honest, the game was okay. It was nothing great. It wasn't a great exhibition. There was a lot of defense, a lot of sloppy offense. And to me, the halftime, I mean, I'm not a Maroon 5 fan, but I could dig the songs a little bit. It's not something that I hear and I'm just like, oh man, this is terrible. So I liked it. I liked the halftime. I thought it was pretty good. I didn't know who the second actor or the second musician was. He just kept doing that mumble rap, which I don't like. So I was just like, I don't know,
man. Now
I'm like, who the hell is this guy, man? And then there's like no lyrics. It's just like, and I was just like, dude, what the hell are you rapping? And then finally the Outkast guy, I don't even know his name, but he came out and sang that one hit song that he had when he went solo from Outkast. So
that badass chinchilla jacket, man. That was the only good thing about that.
So I thought it was half decent. And I know that Maroon 5 guy, I followed him a little bit on Facebook because there was some Colin Kaepernick issues before the game was on. So I started following him a little bit, and he seems like a pretty nice guy. He definitely has plus or good vibes or good messages going across his social media, and it's the kind of person that maybe you want your kids to listen to, because he does seem like a good-hearted kind of guy, and a person that maybe you want your kids to admire or listen to their music.
Man, I can't believe you just said that, man. He's the lead singer in Maroon 5.
Right, right. Well, I'm just saying it in his character, at least now, now if he comes out that he wore blackface and a Ku Klux Klan picture, like this senator or this governor guy. Yeah, the governor guy. Then I'll say like, oh, okay, maybe he's not as good of a guy as I thought he was.
So did you see the news that broke today? The guy was going to resign. The lieutenant governor who was ready to take over, he came out. He's like, I can't do this shit either. I wore blackface once too.
He's like, a black guy, isn't he?
No.
The lieutenant guy a black guy too?
No, not what I saw. He said that an article before we came on, I was doing a quick just news feed thing, and he came out and he's just like, I didn't know no better. I was in college. I like Eric B. and Rakim, and we're like, let's go as rappers, and I decided to paint my face black so I can't be the next governor. And now they're going one down, something with a coin toss, or it's like they're having these struggles. And I'm like, man, I don't know what possessed people to do blackface. Like, you guys that's just a big fucking no, man. Like, it's never, ever, ever a good idea to do that.
I think some people, at least back in the day, just had no clue as to what's right and what's wrong. And maybe they thought, this is going to be funny. Let me do it. It's kind of like people who dress up as Native Americans, and then Native Americans get pissed off because they're doing the tomahawk chop and they got these big feather hats and stuff like that. Stuff like that is insensitive. Now, if it's a Halloween costume party, I think the rules kind of lax a little bit. So if there's a guy that walks in with a poncho and he's got a sombrero, I'm not going to get offended because it's a Halloween party kind of thing. But if he's just doing it for the hell of doing it, I think, people have a right to get upset, especially with something like that, like blackface. That's a little much. I think you got to really be inept in your common sense to, not see that that's not right.
When I was growing, when I remember when I kind of knew it was bad, when I first started like recognizing it, I used to see it on like some old ass cartoons growing up, but I really didn't understand it.
Right. I saw Benny Hill with it and some Benny Hill skits.
And I'm just like, well, obviously they're just, when I was a kid, I'm like, they're trying to be black. I didn't know it was like offensive. And then where it really caught my eye was Ted Danson did blackface. He went to some like reporter thing at the White House, if I remember. Like, Google it, dude, and people were up his ass. Like, how can you do this? This is offensive. And he was defending it, like Ted fucking Danson.
Cheers, Ted Danson?
Yeah, because he was with Whoopi Goldberg at the time. And that's when I kind of knew, like, okay, I understand. I saw stuff, black people saying, like, how this is offensive and what it represented. That's how I kind of understood more because I was able to comprehend it. I was more of like a teenager. And that's when I first started like, wow, this is never a good idea for anybody to put on blackface, because it's just, this ain't the old days, man. Even back then, this is like late 80s. And when I see more and more people doing it now, or like in the 90s, and like, what? Like, you guys are fucking idiots, man. And then they take pictures of it. It's like, you guys are stupid.
Right, right. I don't know if you watched, I know we were talking about the NFL, but now we're talking about this funny governor issue that's going on. But did you see the press conference where he was trying to apologize and trying to, kind of give reasoning behind him taking the picture? Did you see that?
No, if he denied it was him. Then it came out like he did say it was him, right?
Right, right. At first he denied it and he said, I don't know who that is, but it's not me. But then but then he finally came out and said that it was him. So he held a press conference where he's kind of talking about it. He's like, look, the picture, that's not me. I didn't do blackface and take that picture next to that Ku Klux Klan guy. He's just like, I did do blackface in another situation, but it wasn't that. That's not me. And so the reporter started asking him, it's just like, well, what was your other situation that you were in? And he's just like, it was a Michael Jackson impression contest. You didn't see this, Andy?
No, I didn't see
Oh, man, this is so funny, Andy. You got to look at it after we're done here, man.
Yeah, I'll check it
so,
out.
So he does the press conference, and he's just like, yeah, it was a Michael Jackson impression contest. So I was trying to win. I had the shoes, the glove, and everything. So he says just a little bit of, the tar or whatever the hell he was using to get blackface. And the contest was to do the moonwalk. And so he goes on a little bit more for another few minutes answering questions. And then there's a reporter out of the blue goes, hey, so you said that your dance was the moonwalk for the contest. And he's like, yeah, that's right. And then the reporter goes, do you still think you could do the moonwalk?
No,
and dude, the guy looks at the floor, and then he starts looking around kind of like, hey, man, I got to get an open area if I'm going to do this moonwalk thing.
No fucking way.
And then the wife next to him reaches out and kind of like, almost grabs his shoulder and tells him, this is not appropriate at this time. And then so that, she's kind of says it kind of low voice, so you can't really hear it too well. So then he reiterates, my wife said that this isn't really the venue or appropriate time to do a moonwalk. And I'm just like, what is wrong with this idiot?
Would have been gangsters like, my wife says it's inappropriate, but I think it's awesome. And he does like a spin, and then he starts moonwalking back. Now that would have been funny as hell, man.
It is so funny, dude. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. At first, I had heard about it on Mancow because Mancow is rolling around in it, man.
Yeah.
He keeps playing the Billie Jean song and playing that clip of him like, hey, do you still know how to do the moonwalk? And he's just like, and this idiot was almost about to do it. So it is so funny, man. If the news is right that he's stepping down, rightfully so, man. I don't know how this guy got voted governor to begin with.
That's what I'm saying. I was reading it, and I'm like, wait, what? Like the lieutenant governor admitted, like, wait, not the regular the lieutenant said, like, I can't do it, man, because I did blackface in the 80s in college. I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? And then the article said Virginia is for losers because I think their logo or their state motto is Virginia is for lovers or something. So they just said Virginia is for losers. And they had like all these government people, like they're in crisis mode. And I'm just like, wow, man. Like, I can't believe this shit. So they're trying to figure out who's next in line to be governor or something. And they're talking about, it was like a quick read. They might do a coin toss or something. I was just like, wow. It is fucking ridiculous.
Well, I did hear about the lieutenant governor also having issues because the same person that leaked this picture linked sexual allegations against the lieutenant governor, something to the fact of that he had sex with this lady without her consent, like forcefully, put himself something like that.
Yeah,
they haven't said rape, but something to the fact of that she was
her.
that she wasn't consenting with it. And the guy's like, no, she consented. It was a consensual. He's not denying that he had sex with her, but he is saying that it was consensual. So that was the other big part, like you said. But I didn't hear it was because he also did blackface. I heard it was because of him having sexual allegations against him, and it would not be, smart for them to get rid of the governor and then the lieutenant governor take over, and then he gets kicked out because of these sexual allegations come out to be true or something like that.
The article I read said that he can't be governor because he did blackface. Wow. So I'm just like, what the fuck? And then if you read like, yes, I like Eric B. and Rakim. I didn't understand the sensitivity at the time. I do now, so I can't be governor. And I'm just like, whoa, like the other fucking governor did this too. The guy underneath him, like, what the hell is going on? That's why I was like, my fucking jaw dropped,
That is crazy, man. That is super nuts.
Moonwalk shit. As soon as we're done, I'm gonna check it out because what the fuck was it's like, I'm gonna moonwalk. Back up, people.
Yeah, right.
Kudos to the reporter having balls to ask that question because he got what he was wanting. He was going to have the fucking governor do the moonwalk.
Right. It was so funny, dude. But just like this podcast, man, the fun is over, man. Hopefully none of us have to resign. But we'd like to thank you all for listening to another episode from the Freeform Radio on the Freeform Network. Remember, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Freeform Network. Send in those questions and suggestions to ffnquestions@gmail.com. Like Andy mentioned at the start, we hope to have very soon a compilation of all the questions that we've been getting and comments, and kind of just go over them really quick and have just like a reader mail episode in the very near future. So tune in soon for that. But stay in tune through freeformnetwork.podbean.com. There you're going to see all the links for all the various devices for listening to podcasts. Remember to hit that subscribe and like button. Leave us a good comment. It really helps the algorithms to keep us at the top, to make sure that we keep climbing those charts. But for Freeform Radio, I have one of my hosts, Andy.
I'm going to moonwalk out of here in a minute.
And my name is Daniel. I'd like to thank you all for listening. Have a great week. Stay safe out there, guys. Go tune in and watch this moonwalk video. It is hilarious. Have a great one, guys.
That was cool, Dad.